When the United States was first formed in the 1700s, the biggest threat to our country was British people with guns. But 300 years later, the United States is realizing that it's just as big a threat as people with guns as people with computers. The International Business Times of February 20th, 2016 explains that currently, in the new age of cyber defense, the United States government and personal data is incredibly vulnerable to a cyber attack. And as offenses like China and other countries across the globe continue to come for the United States, the U.S. is determining that it needs to up its defense strategy if it wants to prevent a tremendous attack. And considering the Harvard Belfer Center of March 1st, 2016 explains that China already has the cyber capabilities to hack into the United States nuclear system, it could have devastating consequences if we fail to address cybersecurity, which is why it's imperative that we ask the question, what should the U.S. federal government do to protect the population from cyber attack? And the answer is the United States should create a comprehensive strategy to address our biggest weaknesses in 3 ways. First, by securing our electrical grid. Second, by increasing cooperation with the private sector. And finally, by ensuring that the United States increases its technological capabilities. The United States in December of 2015 witnessed that for the first time, a group of hundreds of thousands of civilians were without electricity for hours in eastern Ukraine as a result of a cyber attack. And now the United States is recognizing that it has to defend itself against this type of attack. And so the first way the United States can create a strategy to reduce its weaknesses is by increasing its electrical grid. The Christian Science Monitor of January 25th, 2016 explains that the electrical grid is one of the most vulnerable parts of the United States' current cyber defense system, and it's vulnerable to attack particularly within its high-volt transformers, meaning that this is the area the United States needs to ensure it increases its capabilities. The Congressional Research Service of March 8, 2016 explains that high-voltage transformers need to be upped in their encryption techniques to prevent remote attacks from taking them down. But moreover, we need to secure them physically as well. As the Department of Energy writes in its 2015 Quadrennial Energy Review, the Department of Energy should also ensure that it creates spare emergency high-voltage transformers in the event that an attack actually occurred, because it takes over a year to manufacture one. So in order for the United States to ensure that it increases its capabilities to protect the population, it needs to take steps to ensure that it not only prevents a cyber attack from happening on the grid, but if one does happen, it has the necessary resources to prevent the population from feeling the despair and danger that one could bring. The United States also has to recognize that its capabilities are not limited to the public sector. The private sector has tremendous capabilities as well. And thus, the second reason and way in which the United States can increase its technological cyber capabilities is by cooperating with the private sector. Adam Siegel writes in his 2016 book, The Hacked World Order, that the ability of a great power in cyber defense is dependent on its ability to channel the power of the private sector's innovation. And while the United States has developed a strong cyber defense strategy within the Department of Defense, it hasn't managed to tap into the private sector just yet, partially because of the Cybersecurity Act preventing this. And so the Council on Foreign Relations advocates in a February 8, 2016 report, creatively entitled, "All I Want for Christmas Are Amendments to the Cybersecurity Act," that the Department of Defense should instead create an information sharing program that allows it to work directly with private defense companies. In this way, it will not only allow defense companies to have access to the DoD's cybersecurity strategy, but it allows the DoD to tap into the innovative power that private companies can bring. And at the end of the day, Bloomberg of April 1st, 2016 explains that this will create a brain trust of cooperation between the best minds in the private and public sector and help the United States secure itself against any attacks, be it public or private, against its nation's citizens. And thus, the best way to prevent a cybersecurity attack is to bring the best minds in our nation together under one roof. Finally, the United States needs to recognize that it has to increase its technological capabilities to deter a cyber attack on its own. And this is the final way the U.S. can prevent a cyber attack on its population, by developing a stronger, offensive cybersecurity strategy. The Center on Budget and Planetary Assessments explains on March 1st of 2016 that already cyber weapons are on par with missiles as an effective deterrent and war strategy within the global sphere. And so while a variety of aggressive nations like China, North Korea, and Iran have increased their cyber capabilities to attack other nations, the United States needs to get on par with these countries. Because the Center for European Policy Analysis explains in February 26, 2016, that this type of deterrence needs to be carried out by the United States, developing its capabilities to enact reconnaissance on healthcare, transportation, and energy in other countries. Essentially, if countries that have already developed cyber strategies see the United States developing just as strong capabilities as they have, they'll be deterred from attacking the United States because they'll know we can attack right back. But the Diplomat of February 3rd, 2016 furthers that this type of strategy is likely to be most effective against China, the current biggest cybersecurity threat to the United States. So it's clearly in the best interest of the U.S. to protect its citizens from cyber attack by deterring China or any other country from attacking us. And if the United States wants to create the safest cyber environment for its citizens, it needs to send a message to the rest of the world that if you attack the United States, the U.S. will attack you. So it's clear that when we return to today's question, what should the U.S. federal government do to protect the population from cyber attack? The answer is develop a strategy to address our weaknesses by securing the electrical grid, by creating stronger capabilities, and by creating a deterrent system. So while the United States recognizes that our biggest threat is no longer British people with guns, we are going to be able to move forward into the 21st century if the U.S. creates a strategy that prevents cyber attacks from plaguing us.